Thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome to the joint meeting of the Education and Culture Committee and Health and Human Services Committee. It's Wednesday, April 22nd. We have several items on the agenda today, 3 to be exact. The FY27 recommended budget for DHHS Early Childhood Services Program area, the Early Care and Education Non-Departmental Account, and the Children's Opportunity Alliance non-departmental account. And I'm joined by my co-chair, Councilmember Sales, and the members of both committees. And this is obviously our budget consideration of these items. But it's also no more important conversation we're going to have all budget and talking about how our youngest children have what they need to thrive. And we also know we're in an environment of where there's a lot of instability at the federal level, which makes this discussion even more timely and more important. So I appreciate all the work of everyone here. I'll turn it over if my co-chair has any remarks before we get started.
Yes, I think, we've met so many times and we've seen these two entities evolve, and I'm very grateful to see all of the progress that's happening at the state to ensure that there's going to be more openings for our students and making sure more resources are available for the scholarship funds as well. And so just looking forward to seeing how we continue to evolve in this difficult budget season to support the growth of pre-K. So.
Thank you, Co-Chair Sales. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Rodriguez-Hernandez to kick us off. I know you want to tee us up and then we'll do a little presentation.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I want to start by thanking our partners at the Department of Health and Human Services and Children's Opportunity Alliance and Office of Management and Budget today for preparing the information for today's work session. I'll quickly go over the executive summary of the discussion the committee will be having today and some programmatic updates before turning it over to our partners for their presentation and then to discuss any budget items for the committee's consideration. Today, as noted, the committee will be reviewing 3 separate areas under early care and education within the Department of Health and Human Services budget and non-departmental accounts that the department has oversight over. So the first is the Early Childhood Services Program area, which resides under the Children, Youth, and Family Services area in DHHS. The second is the Early Care and Education non-departmental account. And then the third is the Children's Opportunity Alliance, or the Early Care and Education Coordinating Entities non-departmental account. And just to note that on April 27th, the Joint Committee will also review the remainder of the Children, Youth, and Family Services area budget and additional school-based programs on April 27th. The county executive recommended a decrease of about $3.8 million or 6.3% for the entire Children, Youth, and Family Service area. And that's primarily due to the reorganization that we've been discussing in the HHS Committee work sessions, but just for the Joint Committee's note also that DHHS underwent an internal reorganization that shifted some program areas to help streamline and make the department's work more efficient. So that decreases in the Children, Youth, and Family Services area is primarily due to that reorganization with some services shifting to their partner at Behavioral Health and Crisis Services. For the Early Childhood Services program area itself, they absorbed 2 program areas. That was one, the Child Care Subsidies program and the Head Start program. So those were in separate areas within DHHS. Now they are under the Early Childhood Services area. The executive is recommending a $310,339 or 1.4% increase for the program area, and that reflects the realignment of FY26 to 27. So that comparison is if based on the current realignment, the FY26 dollars to the recommended FY27 dollars. For the Early Care and Education non-departmental account, the county executive is recommending a $652,485 increase or 4% from the FY26 approved. And for the Children's Opportunity Alliance, he's recommending a 2.5% inflationary adjustment increase or at $19,387. For the committee's discussion, there is one item that would be added to the reconciliation list per the council president's budget approach, which is $500,000 for additional funding to the Working Parents Assistance Program, which we'll discuss at a later point. On April 16th, the HHS Committee reviewed the department's operating budget equity tool analysis report, and the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice does not provide OBETs for non-departmental accounts, being Early Care and Education and Children's Opportunity Alliance. And details on the OBET score for the department can be found on page 4. On page 2, we have a comparison of the Early Childhood Services Program area of the FY26 approved to the recommended based on both years showing the realignment that HHS is currently under, as well as for the non-departmental accounts. And would just like to note that for the Early Care and Education non-departmental account, they do have FTEs, and that increased from 16 in FY26 approved to 23 recommended FTEs for FY27. On page 3 to 4, we provide the descriptions of the 3 areas where we've been discussing today, and did just want to note that due to the realignment and reorganization DHHS, just some housekeeping that the program description areas be updated to reflect all of the changes within it. Moving to programmatic updates, the Early Childhood Services currently has 3 vacancies. One is a new vacant position, 1 position is in the recruitment stage, and 1 is on hold. For those in the HHS committee, you may remember that when we discussed the vacancies at the overview session, some are placed on hold because they are grant funded and they're waiting to determine the final grant amounts before moving forward and hiring that position. For the multi-program adjustments, the Early Childhood Services Program area just reflects that reorganization of Head Start and child care subsidies into their new program area. So that's about $7 million. And while Head Start and child care subsidies combined in FY26 had 8 FTEs, there's only a 1.7 FTE increase for the Early Childhood Services Program area, and that's just due to HHS's realignment of positions for more efficiency throughout the department, supporting other efforts such as Vantage. When we look at the subsidized seats, and I know our partners will go into that in more detail, I just wanted to highlight the chart that's on page 6 that shows you the main programs we have here for locally subsidized programs, as well as those subsidized by federal grant from Head Start and Early Head Start. And so that is on the table on page 6. Did just want to note that this year, as we discussed last year, the Head Start grant that the county received was based on a new model that included not just MCPS providing Head Start for our pre-K students, but also community-based providers providing Head Start. And the department chose to focus that on early Head Start, so those infants and toddlers receiving those services, and that should roll out later this year. There are additional updates on the Shared Services Alliance, as we mentioned in the previous work sessions as well, where the Early Childhood Services Program launched this collaboration to provide 20 selected childcare providers of various sizes to participate in it and provide shared services around coaching, business coaching, networking with other providers, and access to discounts for supplies and education materials, as well as receiving a telehealth option for providers for themselves and for their employees. And so that is going into effect as well. In addition, the Early Care and Education Facility Fund launched its first ever version of this fund to expand and improve child care facilities through forgivable and zero interest loans, where providers can either choose to expand and provide additional classroom seats or enhance the quality of their current seats based on Excel ratings and things like that. Last year, we also talked about the Up County Child Care Center. So where the county provided a $1 million match to a state bond for Cross Community for their Up County Child Care Center. Currently, DHHS states that the facility and lease in Gaithersburg were secured in fall 2026, and that the retrofit construction is underway with their applications for the intent to operate being filed with the state, as well as all other license requirements, and that there's a fall 2027 anticipated opening date. Of course, our department also helps support providers increasing their Excels rating. I will note that to date in fiscal year 26, the county has supported 44 programs in achieving a level 3 to 5 quality rating with 20 programs in progress. So I can pause there, turn it over for any questions, or we can move into the presentation.
Any questions for anybody at this time, or can we go through the presentation? Yes, I'm fine to wait for that too. And so I'll turn it over first to Dr. Bridges and team.
Good afternoon, Education and Culture Chair Jawando and our HHS Chair Sales. I wasn't going to bring a lot of remarks this afternoon, but I moved to bring just a few. And I hear the chuckle. 3.5 years ago, when I was a neophyte director in this space, you encouraged me, Councilmember Jawando, not to take a back seat. I am definitely in the front seat with all of our partners at the table because this is work. The complexities of early care and education is just that. When I came into this space, I often use the word daycare. They're not daycare providers. Let me make that clear. These are early educators who nourish our youngest residents. I had an opportunity to meet with our educators during Read Along Month, and it was an experience. I met with staff and I understood some of the challenges that they had from access to care, from just the misnomers about the work that they do, and the wage equities. I'll share a personal story, and I won't go over my talking points. My mother was an educator, and she had to leave her job because there was no working parents' assistance. My brother had developmental disabilities. Both are now deceased, but imagine in the early 70s when some of these challenges still exist now with funding and investments and support to our early childhood services. And so the work that we do, the budget that's presented, clearly is an investment that the county executive, that this council has in this community. It is very complex, and our partners continue to highlight and illustrate those complexities, which you will see in a minute during this budget briefing. I appreciate the work that our team does, our partners, that the executive staff and the council, and the vested interest in this space. So, having said that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Arnaz now for her presentation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. Jennifer Arnaz, Senior Administrator for Early Childhood Services, DHHS. So today we're going to provide a high-level picture of our FY27 recommended budget that supports our youngest children as well as their families and the early care educators in our community. Our goal is to ground you in where we are today, what we've accomplished in FY26, and what is required to sustain a strong, equitable early childhood system as we move forward. We'll begin as we always do, focusing on our why. So I'll now pass it to my colleague, Kimberly Rusnick from the Children's Opportunity Alliance.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kimberly Rusnick, the Executive Director of the Montgomery County Children's Opportunity Alliance, our county's early care and education coordinating entity. We want to make sure we set all of these sessions grounding ourselves in the data to help us understand the reality for families in our community. The system has made some progress this year. We have increased from serving 11,000 children to 12,000. There are about 57,300 children under the age of 5, including about 32,000 who are eligible for subsidized care. Yet in 2025-26, we are still only serving about 37% of those in greatest need. The community need for childcare continues to be great. This is why we have put forward multiple requests this year related to availability, affordability, and access. COA put forward recommendations to support increased investment in working parents' assistance and to support COA with systems-level investments that will improve access, family outreach, and state-level advocacy. If you turn to the next slide, this demonstrates how we are funding seats as you look at our system. And what you will see through this is that family pay is still the largest part of this system. But we do have multiple different pathways from pre-K, EquiCare, local contracts, Head Start, working parents assistance, special education, and childcare scholarships for families to gain access to care. So with that, I will turn it back to Jennifer and you will move through the next steps.
Thank you for always starting with that. I think I know I asked you to do that. I hope you don't just do it just for me. I hope you just think it's a good way to start. And I think it's important to remember where we've come, how far we've come, and how far we have to go. So thank you.
Agreed. It is our why. It is what keeps us focused. So many of you may remember this slide from last year's presentation, and for some it may be new, but I thought it'd be a helpful visual to remind us how the early childhood system is really not a single program. It's an interconnected system that touches multiple agencies and partners. Montgomery County Government, Montgomery County Public Schools, Montgomery College, and the Early Care and Education Coordinating Entity each hold different roles and levers in this system. Policy funding, workforce development, program oversight, and service delivery are coordinated and supported as a system. As county government, Our core role is to directly deliver essential early childhood services while ensuring the broader system works cohesively. We operate key programs that families rely on. We coordinate our efforts across this system, and we align our funding and eligibility so that the entire community experiences a system that is accessible, equitable, and responsive to their needs. In my role, I have made it a priority to ensure that equity is the lens through which every decision is made for our children and families' well-being. Ultimately, the systems level change happens when all partners advance shared goals and use data, policy, and strategic investments to guide decision-making. Next slide, please. So in FY26, our focus was on strengthening access, sustainability, workforce capacity, and seat expansion across the county. Our budget is a combination of local, state, and federal dollars. This year, our dollars supported key areas within the system. Within access and affordability, early in the fiscal year, DHHS embarked on a realignment of services and programs. In December, the Working Parents Assistance Program, our local child care subsidy program, as well as Head Start, moved to early childhood services to create a more streamlined and coordinated entry point for families. This allowed us to expand our outreach of child care subsidies. It also enabled us to coordinate our systems level approach. I'm very proud to share that we cleared the WPA waitlist with all the applications and began accepting applicants from the state child care scholarship waitlist. Since February the 22nd of February, we have brought in a combined 130 children into the WPA system. We were able to do this because now that WPA sits within early childhood services, we can conduct quarterly analysis to evaluate in real time what benefits are being utilized as well as what dollars can be shifted to meet the needs of our families. And because we've never had a wait list for the birth to 5 population, we were able to shift some dollars to immediately meet those needs of all of our families. In terms of sustainability, we are now completing the implementation phase of our Shared Services Alliance with 20 participating organizations. We provide back office supports, access to discounted materials and products, and quality technical assistance to small providers. We've also achieved a 9% increase in Excel's rated 3 through 5 childcare programs in Montgomery County, as well as increased the number of accredited programs. This translates into approximately 89 programs in our county that have moved to a higher quality level in Montgomery County to serve our families. We've also strengthened cross-sector collaboration through Children's Opportunity and HHS-led work groups. The 2 work groups that we have, as we mentioned in our April session, are to reimagine our local subsidy program, and our intent is to elevate recommendations for ComCore in July. The second work group is to focus on an action plan on our workforce and compensation study that will benefit our workforce here in Montgomery County. Our focus will be on pay equity, benefits, and state advocacy on a career lattice. In terms of workforce, we did complete, as I had mentioned, the workforce and compensation study, giving us a strong evidence base for future investments. We've also had the opportunity to participate with the Children's Opportunity Alliance on their Educator Stories Forum, an opportunity for childcare providers to share through their experiences, the scenarios that they live with every day and the challenges that they struggle with. We've provided 209 scholarships to Montgomery College, which is an increase of 45% from previous years. These are individuals who are pursuing credentials such as the CDA, the Associates of Applied Science, and as well as an Associates of Applied Science to transfer to a 4-year degree program. These individuals are currently working in the field of early care and education and going to school at the same time. In relation to expansion of child care seats, the staff at DHHS have supported 20 organizations with the Blueprint grant application process through a series of small group and individual technical assistance activities. The results of the Blueprint grant should be released any day. I'm very pleased to share that we have also selected 19 child care programs to move forward with the loan process from our Child Care Facilities Fund, representing an estimated 178 child care seats that are new in Montgomery County. The final stage for this group includes the underwriting process, the final construction assessment, and the judgment and lien search. We estimate that this will conclude by the beginning of June. We are currently in the implementation phase of starting our newly created community-based early Head Start program for 75 infants and toddlers. We have selected 11 childcare programs, and we are now finalizing our agreements with an expectation of recruitment of children and placing those children in the next month or so. Finally, we have released the total approved funding of $1 million to Cross Community for the construction of a childcare program in Gaithersburg, Maryland. This program will seat 75 children with an expected start date of fall of 2026. Next slide, please. Okay. For the FY27 recommended budget, the county executives are recommending a $21.7 million budget for early childhood service. This is a strategic investment, not only that preserves our investments, but also strengthens alignment and system capacity. One of the biggest shifts this year is the unifying early childhood services under a single leadership structure. WPA and Head Start are now aligned with our ECS functions to reduce fragmentation and streamline oversight. We will continue with our core work. The budget maintains and sustains essential programs and operations. This includes our early interventions program, community outreach, child care provider supports, and stakeholder engagement. In terms of system updates and capacity building, the recommended budget requests the conversion of 5 contracted positions to merit staff. This will improve stability and reduce turnover in key roles. This includes 4 WPA staff who conduct intake, process applications, and payments, as well as 1 family resource specialist that will support families accessing our local subsidy programs, our EQUA Care, as well as the State Child Care Scholarship. We also plan to create 2 new positions to better support Blueprint expansion grantees by ensuring compliance, technical assistance, and quality assurance of programs that are growing rapidly. These 2 positions consist of back office and grant support, which is a model that we've extended from what was brought on in a pilot project by the Children's Opportunity Alliance. The second one is an instructional specialist. The state has added a new caveat to the Blueprint grant, which requires an instructional specialist to provide technical assistance to child care programs. The cost to that work is cost prohibitive to many of the child care programs. So by hiring and adding to our team, we are able then to consolidate and work smarter in that field and be able to provide the support that's required for curriculum implementation. The county executive also recommends an increase of $500,000 to support our continued expansion of Working Parents Assistance Program. We do expect the current state freeze to continue in FY27 and are monitoring applications in real time so that we can continue to be responsive to our families. And I want to remind that at this time we have no wait list in our Working Parents Assistance Program. A central theme I want to emphasize: each partner in our system has a different role. The county executive has recommended a budget for the COA that will include launching a centralized early care and education resource website, which is a major enhancement for families, providers, and public information. It'll allow individuals to seek and navigate all county information related to ECE beyond county services. COA will also expand the capacity to elevate the ECE system through data, community forums such as their story forums, and public information. The budget reflects the work of DHHS. However, a key aspect of this system is the coordination of all public dollars to ensure coordination and alignment. I'll now pass it to my colleague Kimberly Rusnick to share how the additional dollars from COA will support this space.
Great. So in fiscal year 26, there are some key highlights we'd like to talk about. It was the beginning and launching of our common agenda with countywide goals around kindergarten readiness, access and affordability, workforce supports, and a long-term goal of dedicated funding stream to support the early care and education sector by 2030. Also, we've really worked hard to use data to help support partners. For example, helping Story Tapestries secure a state EARN grant to strengthen the ECE opportunities and workforce pipeline. We also hosted the Early Care and Education Stories Forum, elevating educator voices and advancing recommendations for fiscal year 27. Next slide. We continue to leverage the county's investment in Children's Opportunity Alliance to raise private funds. The amount of private philanthropy we have raised has continued to increase each year. This year we hired a director of development using private philanthropic funds so that we can continue to increase our fundraising efforts moving forward. On this slide, there are some highlights of how we have spent philanthropic funds in fiscal year 26. For example, we did opinion polling about the importance of early care and education, and through that, we learned that 70% of Montgomery County voters prioritize early childhood care and education, which is a good baseline to help us move forward in talking about early childhood as a public good that our community must invest in and support our multi-year strategies moving forward related to a dedicated funding stream for early care and education. This year, we also took a new step by putting forward a fiscal year 27 budget and policy recommendations to the county executive. We recommended increasing investments in the Working Parents Assistance Program and advancing 3 policy changes. First, allowing children on the CCS waitlist to access WPA. Second, raising income eligibility to self-sufficiency standard for county programs. And third, creating categorical eligibility for educators. We've heard throughout the community that many educators cannot afford care for their own children, which is an inequity that we feel must be addressed. To date, we have succeeded in achieving 1 out of these 3 policy asks to allow children on the CCS waitlist to access WPA, and we are still focused on pushing forward the other 2. We also proposed scaling working parents assistance and investments from $500,000 to up to $16 million. When we look at our common agenda, our goal by 2030 is to increase to 18,000 children in our early care and education system, and an investment of an additional $16 million is what is needed to serve an additional 1,000 children for the next school year. Finally, we have requested $125,000 to support a state-level advocacy position that would be housed at the Children's Opportunity Alliance, which was not included in the county executive's proposed budget that has come over to you all. And we are also advancing an additional ask of $30,000 to $50,000 to expand outreach and improve access to resources for underserved and vulnerable families in our community. I'm hopeful that we can have a conversation today about these recommendations because they are critical systems building investments to help the Children's Opportunity Alliance and Montgomery County to achieve our joint goals included in our county's common agenda. Next slide. And back to you, Jen.
Thank you. So as we look ahead, it's important to anchor these investments in the broader system vision the county committed to building 7 years ago, a vision that continues to shape our work today. So at this time, I welcome any questions from council members.
Thank you. I remember Councilman Friedson, I think, and I will remember that press conference 7 years ago. It's hard to believe that that was that long ago. It was one of the first things our former colleague, Councilmember Navarro, kicked off with the county executive, and here we are. Miles to go before we sleep, but we've made some progress. So I'll just ask a couple questions, then I'll turn to my co-chair, and then colleagues. We'll just go down the line. I'm sure everyone wants to ask something. If that's appropriate, then we can do the decision points. What do you think, Ms. Rodriguez-Hernandez? Is that a good thing?
I think that the committee could have a conversation now on the programmatic updates and then on the specific requests.
You can guide us through those. Mm-hmm. Great, awesome. So you mentioned Head Start enrollment in the packet. You mentioned it, but that it's been impacted, unfortunately, negatively by immigration-related concerns. Could you just talk about the scale and scope of that and how that jives with what you just reported as far as the progress we've made and just what the puts and takes are there?
Sure. So Head Start, we have a program that sits currently in MCPS, and we are seeing a reduction of approximately 12% of enrollment. And what has been cited anecdotally from many families is there is a fear of immigration as well as, and so many are relocating. Many are relocating out of the county and out of the state. So that drop obviously is significant for us. We have been conducting some outreach into the community to do one-on-one with our trusted ambassadors in the communities to help raise awareness about Head Start and its program. One, I think our partnership with MCPS, what has been quite creative, right, is that we've been able to also be able to place children into pre-K where it doesn't have the same requirements as our federal dollars do. As we move into the space of our early Head Start, which is the birth to 3 population in the community, we're ready to launch that in about a month or so. We are very cognizant that there is still this fear in the community. I do think, however, that being placed in family, childcare homes, or center-based doesn't come with the same stigma, and so many families are more open to accessing those programs. Regardless, though, as the federal requirements are changing, at this point there is no requirement for the children's eligibility to be based on their parents' immigration status, but we are being mindful and watching that. If that changes, then we will have to react to that in real time.
And is there a timeline? Obviously, I think that's abhorrent and shouldn't happen, but if do we have a sense of, there's no like there's nothing that's pending that where we could judge when and if that would
No, at
happen?
this time, because it's sitting at the Supreme Court, we're waiting on a hearing.
Right. Okay. That was my understanding too. Okay. The other question I wanted to ask related to, well, we'll do that when we get to the decision point on the amounts of money. So I'll turn to my co-chair first and see if there's anyone else.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. I just had a quick question about the programming that our students would have access to. I think everyone understands 0 to 5 is so important, and so just wanted to better understand how we are distributing the child care providers, the rewards that you mentioned. You said that it would fund for how many? 175, 157? The new seats that are under contract?
So the facility fund is
Facility fund.
Thank you. Okay, the facility fund was an award process, right? So it went out. There were applications that were vetted by an outside consultant. They and they have selected these programs. The criteria, the rubrics that we use, right? Priority was given for programs that were in identified areas where there was not high quality childcare programming,
Okay.
or lack of seats, as well as lack of infant toddler seats specifically. So based on that, there were there were programs who were selected that are going to be awarded somewhere around $2.2 million in total for these 85 seats. And so they are sporadic around the county, but it is
Okay.
based on our supply and demand study that we completed last year in those three
Okay.
identified areas: infant, toddler, quality, and lack of seats.
Okay. I'll wait till we get to the decision points for additional questions. Thank you.
Anyone else have a question at this time, or just want to move into the action items? Councilmember Lukey.
Thank you for everything and for the update. I just had one quick question, which was, and I'm happy about the increase in the Excel's participation. Have you all, as part of your overall strategy, set like an annual target for percentage increase for leveling folks up into the Excel's program, or because you provided that it was a 9% increase, and I just wanted to know, like, in terms of your long-term strategy, where that fit into your metrics.
So our goal is that at least 60% of our child care programs are at levels 3, 4, or 5. We are not there yet.
Okay.
The process is rather challenging for programs.
Yes.
To get to level 3 is quite the hurdle from just enrolling into the program and being at level 1 and then 3. The movement from 3 to 4 is slightly easier, but then to get to 5, it's really dependent on staffing.
Right.
So in conjunction with that goal of having 60% be at levels 3, 4, and 5, with a variety scattered between those, right? It's also working hand in hand with Montgomery College so that we can get the
Right.
workforce prepared to get to that level 5.
Okay. And thank you for that. And thank you also for reminding everyone who's listening how cumbersome the process. I mean, like, it is a really, really challenging thing to do. And you all provide great technical assistance in order to help folks get there. And I appreciate you saying, hey, look, it's better to do this centrally, right, than to have it try to be providers trying to do it on their own or hire someone separately on their own. It is much better to be able to centralize that technical assistance. And so I think, outside budget time, it would be good to be able to come back and sort of do a deeper dive into where we are in Excel's, to see, again, and
understanding there are different things that have to occur at the different levels in order to get there, and bring in our partners who can help talk to that and really take a deeper dive in where we are as a county and where we fit into each of those levels and what it's going to take for us to expand and increase as we move along. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lukey. We'll talk about the website because it's a line item, so I have some questions about that. So let's why don't we move to each item now? Yeah.
All right, so moving into the budget discussion items for the committee's review, I do want to preface that in the packet, starting on page 10, I did just provide some summary information on each of the 3 areas, the Early Childhood Services Program area and the 2 non-departmental accounts, just to provide a deeper dive into their budgets. So table 4 on page 10 gives you highlights of the Early Childhood Services Program area budget, including key areas such as like their Head Start funding, Commission on Childcare, the subsidies, and infant and toddlers. And you can see that increase of the $14.8 million to the $21.7 million. We did the same for the Early Care and Education non-departmental account. As we did last year, we provided their spend plan data through fiscal year 25 and up to the end of March for fiscal year 26. I will just note that, based on the council's fiscal year 25 mandate to eliminate the carry forward balance, DHHS, as we discussed last year, was able to increase their number of subsidized seats utilizing those funds, and that any remaining balance from fiscal year 25 was due to vacancies and personnel costs. However, that unused funds were returned to the general fund, and DHHS does expect to utilize the estimated remaining balance in fiscal year 26, based, of course, on any additional applications for WPA or things like that. So just a note on that spend plan. And then for the Children's Opportunity Alliance non-departmental account, you saw their highlights for fiscal year 26 in the presentation as well. But I've included, while the board does need to finalize their fiscal year 27 budget and spend plan based on the council's decision at the end of the fiscal year 27 budget process, some priorities do include the for communications to raise awareness for community outreach, common agenda implementation, data collection also related to the common agenda, and building public momentum for a dedicated funding stream and updating their fiscal map. And they also highlighted some funding priorities for the non-county dollars as well. So moving on to the county executive's recommended budget changes, there is only one item that would go onto the reconciliation list per the the council president's budget approach. It is to add funding to the Early Care and Education non-departmental account base budget to move 23 children from the State Child Care Scholarship to County Working Parents Assistance Program for $500,000. So to just give you some background, the county's Working Parents Assistance Program was established via Method 2 regulation in 2004. Eligible families must be a parent or guardian of a child between 0 to 13 years old. So that's where you heard the difference between an infant and toddler, that preschool age, and then school age children. It goes to 13 years old or 19 years old if the child has a disability. They must be a county resident, have an income at or below 450% of the federal poverty line, and be employed 25 hours per week or enrolled in a full-time undergraduate or vocational program. The WPA program currently subsidizes 766 seats for a total of about $7.5 million. And of the currently enrolled children, 561 of them are between the ages of 0 to 5, and 245 of them are 6 years or older. And while there is not a current wait list for county eligible families who are not eligible for the state child care scholarship list, on May 1st, 2025, the state announced a freeze on their state program of the Maryland Child Care Scholarship Program, and that they temporarily stopped issuing scholarships to new families. The wait list continues to grow for this program, and currently approximately 690 Montgomery County families are on the wait list. On February 22nd, as they mentioned, DHHS lifted their school age WPA waitlist and accepted applications from the state's waitlisted program or state's programs waitlist. The requested $500,000 in additional funding will allow the county to subsidize those 23 new children who are waitlisted on the state program, and based on the county's determined true cost of care rate. DHHS is estimating approximately $300,000 will be utilized for 13 infants and toddlers, and $200,000 will be utilized for preschool age children. And the request would increase the total WPA program allocation amount to just $8.1 million just about. And just to note, as we saw in the start of the presentation, that currently only 12,000 children in the county receive subsidized childcare. However, an additional 22,000 are eligible for that subsidized childcare.
Thank you for that. Councilmember Lukey just wanted to make a correction.
Yeah, sorry. So there was something in when you were reviewing the packet earlier, item number 7 on page 8 for the Up County Child Care Center. That actually has an opening date of June 5th this year. So I wanted to clarify that because it makes it sound like they're not starting till the fall, but they're not ready to open till next year. And they already have a 15-year lease, and the opening is a few short weeks from now. So just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that, and also to thank Senator King for the additional state bond funds that she secured this year for that project. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lukey. So we've got this issue of the $500,000 for the Working Parents Assistance Program. Could you just explain? I think if you're watching this at home, you might be like, well, we just said the wait list was empty, and now you did say this, but could you just explain the difference between the two, the relationship of the wait list that we did reduce and now the fact that this one's growing?
Sure.
Yeah.
So
You explained it well, Ms. Rodriguez-Hernandez, but this is just another time.
WPA had a wait list for school-aged children. We have never had a wait list for our birth to 5 group. And when the state implemented their wait list last year, it really compounded the situation. We were able to, when WPA moved over to early childhood services, we were able to do a deep analysis and see where all the benefits were associated with each family. We were able to free up some dollars, lift the wait list, and start vetting all the applications. That was for our local, right? At the same time, though, we were now accepting from applications from families who are on the state scholarship wait list. We currently have around 1,000 children who are at the state wait list for Montgomery County. And so as they are arriving to us, we are going through them and seeing if things have changed, if they're still interested in a benefit. So we're going through that. Our fear
How does
is
that relate to the 690 number? Is that
so 690 right now? This is real time right now. I just gave you the number right
That's
now.
what I thought. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's actually 1,000. So that's
Yeah.
how fast it's
Yes.
growing in between.
So I think it's important to note, right, as families are coming in, right, that we are aligned with the state in terms of very similar ComCore with COMAR regulations. And so we're able to vet those. Now, younger children are more expensive than older school-aged children, right? So keeping in mind that as well. What we are concerned about is as we get into August, we get an uptick of families who are applying for their school-aged children to go into before school starts, right, to arrange their childcare. So the additional dollars, right, will really help us to always be ahead of the curve and be able to serve the applications that we're receiving from the families who qualify for WPA. We are in constant communication with the state as well. So as they have attrition and they are prioritizing children accepted into the state scholarship, we're able then to move families out of WPA into the state. So it is on our end, it's an analysis done in real time to move children from one program to the other so that they're never left in a gap of services. We are very aware of the cost of childcare, and so we do know that our birth to 5 right now does have the funding to support the number of applications we have, but our school age is the one that we are concerned about.
Got it. Thank you for making that clarification. And this 500,000 would move 23 children from the state scholarship waitlist
Correct.
to the county program.
And that would help within our NDA, which allows our school age funding to be able to remain intact and serve those children.
Okay. Councilmember Sayles. Coaches.
Yes, thank you, Chair Jawando, and thank you for clarifying the numbers. And so again, the 690 that was in our packet has now grown to over 1,000, and that's just for Montgomery County?
Correct.
Okay. And $500,000 will support 23 children.
Approximately.
Okay. So, knowing how important this age range is, I know we're in a very difficult budget season, but I know that there have been parents who have been waiting a long time for this relief, and lots of parents came to advocate before us during the public hearings. And so I would like to make a motion for I think there was a second option for $1 million to get 62 children. I wish we had the resources to get through, a third of this list. And it's interesting that both committees are all parents, and some of us know the burden of childcare costs more than others. And so if there's any support to help with the relief.
Councilmember Evans?
I was just going to second your motion.
Oh, thank you.
Great. Anyone want to make a comment? Or, no? Okay. So the proposal would be, and I think that the 1 million on the rec list, do you want to put it in 2 tranches?
I think that's
Yes,
Yeah, I think so.
definitely, so we
Yeah.
don't lose
Okay.
everything.
Yes, you can clarify the motion, yeah.
So we have 500,000 that is CE recommended, that's already on there, and we're adding an additional
500,000.
500,000
Yes.
into having those two into.
tranches.
Okay, got it.
Yes.
And obviously, but tough budget, I don't want, but I would be supportive of that. I think it's important and, as many kids as we can
Vote now.
move forward. Yeah, I mean, if folks are comfortable with that, and if there's, obviously it's going to be difficult budget.
Yeah.
But in both, the CEs, one was already going to be on the rec list for the guidance, but
Yes.
I think having the option is good. Anything else? you want to say?
No, not
Okay.
at this time. I'll put that
So
into
without
the queue.
objection,
Yes.
we'll add that 2 tranches of 500,000 for the WPA. Okay, so next item.
All right, thank you. So the next few items do not need to be added to the reconciliation list per the council president's budget approach.
Thank goodness.
The first is for the early care and education non-departmental account. It is a shift of existing expense from operating expense to personnel costs to reflect the addition of 7 merit staff positions that will support the early care and education initiative. So again, $0 requested, but it would be an addition of 7 full-time positions. And I did just want to note that the annualization for costs for fiscal year 28 is estimated at $285,000 for all 7 positions. The positions can be found outlined on pages 14 to 15 for the committee's review.
Anything you want to add about that, or Ms. Anais? No? Okay.
I
Oh,
would
yes.
like to clarify on the annualization. There's 2 impacts, because we're assuming 6-month lapse for those positions in fiscal & what that means is that the annualization costs of those 7 positions is an additional $405,462, but it's offset by the savings of those contractors for 6 months of $285,005. So the net impact between those 2 things for those 7 positions is about $120,000 increase in cost in fiscal '28.
And that still would be fine under the rules. We don't need to.
Right, so that's for
Yeah.
fiscal year 28 annualization
Yeah,
costs. And
so
thank you, Ms. Lambert, for
down the
correcting
line,
that. I was
yeah.
missing my page on the staff report, but did just want to highlight the $405,000 in annualization costs for fiscal year 28. Those 7 positions are one, as they were described by the department, a family resource specialist, 3 government assistance eligibility specialists, an office services coordinator, and those 2 blueprint positions that the department described in their presentation.
Yeah. And so offsetting required and offsetting adding, but pretty much that's what covers it. So it's not on the list, but without objection.
All right. The next is a recommended reduction for the Early Childhood Services Program area for the Child Developmental Associate Training Reimbursements and Foreign Degree Equivalency Requests, the level of spending. The For both the Child Development Associate and the Foreign Degree Equivalency, you can see the utilization rates on the top of page 16 in Table 7, where on fiscal year 25, about 12 individuals utilized the reimbursement and applied for support and received the reimbursement request. 11 of those applications were for the CDA, and 1 was for the Foreign Degree Equivalency. In fiscal year 26 to date, the department has only received about 5 applications, and they have all been for the Child Development Associate request reimbursement. And DHHS states that the reduction is informed by a multi-year analysis of actual spending and utilization for the CDA training reimbursements and foreign degree equivalency support, and that both have seen a significant decline in requests and expenditures, primarily due to the lower demand resulting from the state's expanded scholarship offerings and reduced utilization tied to the pause in the Maryland Child Care credential reimbursement process. And the executive notes and the department notes that approximately $5,000 remains in general funds for these reimbursement requests in the future, and that there is still $500,000 allocated in the early care and education non-departmental account to support individuals pursuing additional degrees and credentials in early care and education at Montgomery College.
Great. So there's some money left, but it's being not utilized as much, and people are using other options. So without objection, accept that reduction.
All right, and the final decision point for the committee is another recommended reduction of $25,000 for the child care support services trainings. I will note at the start, though, that while it is a $25,000 reduction in general funds, they will be utilizing $25,000 in existing grant funds from the Child Care Resource Center grant for trainings in fiscal year 27, and that DHHS has continued to see on-pace training participation, where in fiscal year 25, the Child Care Support Services offered 338 trainings serving over 5,000 educators, and in fiscal year 26, as of March 2026, they've offered 210 trainings serving about 2,700 educators.
All right, which keep training our educators without objection. With grant funds, which we love. Yes. And that's it for that item, so we can move to the NDA now? Yes, Councilmember Mink.
Thank you. I'm sorry. My brain is catching up here, and I just wanted to better understand the WPA funding, the $500K. We have laid out in front of us how it's going toward the $300 and $200 for infant toddlers and the preschool age children. That's the first $500K that the CE recommended. The $500K tranche that we've just added, if we're able to get that through the reconciliation process, about how would you anticipate seeing that split approximately age-wise? And I'm asking because you had noted that we have the funds for 0 to 5, I think, and I see that eligible families have children between 0 to 13 or potentially up to 19, and so the second tranche of 500, is that going to the younger kids, or is that going to the older kids, or would it?
So in theory, it goes into the program, and we respond to the program as it is needed. So where we see some ebb and flow, where we see some increases for school age, then we would shift dollars into school age. We do know, though, that the younger kids are more expensive. So I would want the flexibility to be able to address the needs in real time as we get those applications, and be able to either fund our school age if that goes up, or our younger children. But those dollars concentrated in WPA in the program itself would allow me that flexibility.
Okay, and so if we only got the first $500K tranche through, would we expect that to take care of to be enough to pay for the anticipated increase that you mentioned around August?
So I think that we are responding to what the budget the recommended budget went forward with what could be sustained in this very challenging fiscal time. So again, our response, right, will be based on where the needs are and the demands from the community. With the current dollars right now, we're able to sustain the same number of children that we have right now, period. We could not add any more kids. And in order to move forward, those additional $500,000 allows us the flexibility to respond to wherever those demands are.
Okay. And then could you just explain, since we've primarily in these meetings obviously talked about the 0 to 5 space, but the dollars for the kids who are over 5, 10, 13, and so on, if you could just briefly explain what that funding goes to, what that looks like.
So the total amount that we have we have $1.2 million allocated for what's considered school-age childcare, and we have about $6.1 million for birth to 5 childcare. And again, the difference in rates, whereas an infant could rate anywhere from $300 to $400 each voucher, versus for school age it could be $90 to $100 a voucher. So we're able to serve more children.
But I'm sorry, just to clarify, the school age, my gap in knowledge may be larger than you anticipate. The school age children can attend public schools, right? So
true, and it's a half-day
additional
program.
Services that they might need, or sorry, go ahead.
So it would be for what's considered wraparound, before and after school.
Okay. Thank you.
Typically, it's the K through 5th grade
Yeah.
age bracket. It does go up to 13 to serve, but the majority of the children are really between kindergarten and 5th grade, elementary school.
Got it. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And I will note that there is tremendous value that I'm sure that we all see in making sure that we are providing that kind of coverage, because your average working parent, their school day does not end when the school day ends. And that's a tremendous, but that's yet it remains it's only a few hours potentially, but is a tremendous barrier to parents' workforce opportunities. And we also see situations where we might have older kids who might have access in their school, maybe to even some free subsidized aftercare programs, but they can't take advantage of those seats because they have to go pick up their elementary school age sibling who does not have access, and now they're both missing out on access. And so we do see that domino effect. So wanted to just have that conversation here briefly, and also lift up that we see the value in that too. Thanks.
Thank you for raising that, Councilmember. Ms. Rodriguez-Hernandez.
Sure. And so just to clarify, the budget discussion items the committee just reviewed were for the early care and education non-departmental account for both the $500,000 in WPA funding and, or is that in the early childhood services? Okay, it's in the early childhood services program area. The 7 positions are in the early care and education non-departmental account, and then the final transition of the reductions are both in the early childhood services area. For just the committee's awareness as well, that there was a $69,000 fiscal year 27 compensation adjustment for the early care and education non-departmental account that's also reviewed by separate committee and the full council. And then similarly, there was a 2.5% inflationary adjustment to the nonprofit service provider contracts that was included both for the early care and education non-departmental account and was the only recommended increase for the Children's Opportunity Alliance non-departmental account.
Appreciate that. And I know we kind of went through because we're so coordinated and aligned, you were talking about all 3 items today at the same time. So it was just, I think that kind of just put everything together, but that's okay because, so thank you. So we do have the question of, so on this item, we're done. But we do have the question of, I did want to ask about the website. So let me do that now. Could you just talk about, I remember I'm having deja vu of when we sat here a couple of years ago and talked about the portal and the big investment that we put into that. Someone might hear this and say, well, why can't the portal do that? And so I just want to address that and allow you to talk about the difference and the interoperability, if any.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure. So as we have looked at other states and jurisdictions that have early care and education coordinating entities similar to us, many of them have this resource website that exists, which provides information to parents of children 0 to 5 with all of the resources that exist in our community. It would have information about Basics and Imagination Library. It would also have information about home visiting. It would have information about childcare subsidies and how different childcare programs. It would not duplicate what the portal is. It would have a link to the portal because the portal allows access to families to apply for working parents assistance and other programs like that. It would also, we've started having conversations with Collaboration Council. We know in our community we have Info Montgomery. We don't want it to be duplicative of that. So right now they have a tab there that is for early care and education. And so we're talking with them about, could that link just go to this website so that we don't have to duplicate all of the other resources that exist on Info Montgomery, and it would just be an addition. I think this spring, as we launched the Neighborhood Ambassadors Initiative, training 10 community members to be ambassadors in the Long Branch Tacoma Park area. What we heard very clearly from them, and what we've also heard from our family navigation work group, is that we have a lot of resources in Montgomery County, and so many families just don't know what resources we have. And so it is the idea that this is a central place for us to put all of that information, so that we would not recreate the MCPS Pre-K website, but we would have a link and say, if you want to learn more about MCPS Pre-K, go here, right? So then as we're out doing community outreach, it's hopefully a single QR code that you can have on a postcard or a bookmark that we can hand out to more families so that they can see it. It can be accessible in multiple different languages. I think long term, we dream about having a decision tree to help families figure out, if I put in my income, if I put in a number of kids, if both parents work or not, then it would spit out and say, then you qualify for this program and this program. So go to these places to figure out more information. So the idea is just really to help it be the system to be more easier to navigate for parents in our community.
Appreciate that clarification. Councilmember Sales.
Can you remind me again how much this system, this dashboard costs to navigate, to set up and then?
So as we have talked with our comms team and our external communications partners, they have given us an estimate to start it up that it would be somewhere between 30 to 50,000, depending on how many phases and how complicated we make it. I think our goal is to have a first phase done by the end of this summer, so that we can kind of use it in back to school season and get out to more community schools and others to kind of share this information more broadly. But I think what we are still figuring out is what that continual maintenance cost will be. And then once we do kind of a first phase, a second phase, a third phase, if there will be additional phases or additional pieces we want to enter into. So in our current contract with HHS, we have about $20,000 every year that is for communications. Part of that could be used for this website, but it would not be enough. And we also do additional communications work outside of this website. So that is why we put forward it as an additional request.
Thank you. And I'm glad Dr. Bridgers is here, because I feel like this is deja vu. We were just talking about a similar portal that is supposed to be a one-stop shop that is going through quite a few different evolutions, that is trying to meet the needs of residents, especially for our social safety net services. And, incorporating the working parent assistance application into this framework sounds like a great transition. So
Absolutely, Councilmember Sales. Thank you. That just triggered my data dashboard deja vu as the conversations we've had. But Councilmember Jawando hit the nail on the head. It's all about interoperability, how these systems talk. And so the department is working on that, and maybe, Ms. Resnick, we can have a conversation, because it's all about cost and minimizing the cost. You also touched on maintenance and operating costs. And so we need to have those conversations about how the system could work together in an interoperable way to minimize costs and improve proficiency.
did you want to chime in, Councilmember Friedson?
Councilmember Friedson.
Sure. Yeah. It's really important. The whole idea here is supposed to be a collaborative effort, and the idea that, we're asking these questions now, I would hope that it wouldn't take a budget hearing and a joint committee session. I really appreciate the line of questioning from the co-chair, because it just is a little surprising that some of these dynamics aren't worked out, because part of the issue here is to make sure that there is a seamless transition for families, and not only are we communicating with them in their language so that they understand where to go and what to do, but that every piece of the process is a soft handoff. And we can't expect residents to seamlessly go between one department and agency and another if the departments and the agencies aren't talking to one another. So I'm really appreciative that we're having this conversation now. I would hope that moving forward that these conversations are happening before we get to the budget asks, because when we're being asked to, invest a lot of money on a portal or not quite as much money, but some additional money on this, that we have a sense of how the piece fits into the whole. I just think that's really important.
Sure. Thank you, Councilmember Freeze, for that. The portal that we've been talking about is the benefits portal, as I was just reminded. There's also other discussions that we can have and not during the session. So it's ongoing conversations, and we will continue to talk about the interoperability of both systems.
Councilman says, I think just needed to ask one other thing, and then we'll go to colleagues.
Closing it out, because I know that during our initial joint discussion with GO and HHS, we talked about you wanting to do an assessment with TEBS to figure out how far and wide this portal could be to, all right, Mr. Hodge may have something to contribute. So, yeah, because, I know that there's talks of the AI functionality, and, I know that there are other line items about different positions. So just trying to streamline as much information, making it easier for our residents to access a one-stop shop application online at their leisure, and just wanting to, because I don't recall where we ended that conversation of the further assessment, or if that's going to be on the reconciliation list, or if we're still. So I'll let you go, Mr. Hodge.
Thank you. Mark Hodge, I'm the Chief Operating Officer for HHS. So first, let me I think we're conflating two things. So the website that the Children's Opportunity Alliance is creating, or has created, provides information to their clients about a variety of opportunities and resources that the county may have around early child care. It does not do any eligibility criteria. It doesn't do any, it doesn't look at what amounts they may receive. That's all done in the portal. And as Kimberly mentioned, there is a link to the portal that will be in their website that says, here's resources you can get. Please click on this. When they get to the portal, they can then enter their financials. They can enter all their demographics. That system, the portal system, will then do all of the behind-the-scenes work and creating the eligibility for them to say that you are now eligible for this amount of money. Thank you for your application. It will be looked at, and we will get back to you. And so that's what that system does. The website for the Children's Opportunity Alliance simply is, at this point, simply just an information source for the community, which is why it's only $30,000 to do that, because they're just creating a website. There's no functionality behind it. It's just an informational place for people to go. The cost of the portal has all the functionality built into it behind the scenes to be able to do the eligibility, for people to enter their information, for it to be interfaced with a variety of other systems, like our integrated case management system, with other systems in the future. That's why the difference in cost.
So how are our residents able to apply for the WPA now? They can go online and apply for it?
In the portal, yep.
In the Community Connect portal?
Correct.
Okay, so why are we spending $30,000 on a different portal for information sharing instead of just having a landing page on the HHS website about COA?
So I think our intent, and as we look at other early care and education coordinators throughout the country, many of them on that website have like a For Parents tab. And on that For Parents tab, it has any information that a parent who has a child 0 to 5 might be looking into finding. And if they go through that tab and on there they say, oh, I do need help with childcare, we would have a link there that would say, if you're interested in childcare, there are multiple different pathways of how you could access childcare. If you qualify for WPA, you can go here. If you qualify for CCS, you go here.
Why aren't we just doing that with the CYF website, the HHS website? Why aren't we already doing that in-house?
It would go beyond county services. It would be, so for example, it would
There's
also include
lots of
something like
websites
Imagination Library that is privately funded and supported in the community. It would include things like Basics, which is housed at Collaboration Council. It would include all of those different resources that exist for families who have children 0 to 5, because right now the county only puts on their website, to my understanding, what is funded by the county. And so there are some initiatives and programs that are not funded by the county and therefore not included on that website.
Okay, so I don't know if this is a question for Dr. Bridgers, but why can't we put a page for external resources? What's barring us from
We
doing
can
that?
add a link. I have no.
I think, so Jenna and I have had conversations one-on-one about what this looks like and why we need this and how it is connected to the portal. I think we have greater flexibility and hopefully speed to be able to provide more up-to-date information and to provide information that is not necessarily funded by the county, and to also have all of the 0 to 5 information in one place, right? So right now, if a family is interested in, if you Google search MCPS, or if you search childcare Montgomery County,
Okay.
it doesn't necessarily go to HHS and CCS and WPA. It doesn't necessarily go to MCPS and pre-K, but those are all programs that we have. So I think part of our hope too is once we get this website up and running, we can figure out those search engine optimization type things so that if people are going to the internet and searching for these things, it will come to this website. It will help them find those connect points to the other resources that exist in our community, which I think is harder to do with a government website.
Well, I think you all are meeting monthly now?
Every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks. So you all need to meet more often and figure this out in committee and then come to us about how you're going to get a page. I'm not supporting $20,000 for an external website for resources. We need to get you a website and how to update it with resources. There's no reason why we can't put external resources on a website and give you ownership and the ability to keep it updated or find an intern. So I yield. Thank you.
Yeah, and just to be clear, that additional money would have to be added to the reconciliation list. It's not currently in the proposal. It's something that COA had asked for and spoken to us individually for, just to be clear on that. I know my committee has been waiting patiently here. So Councilmember Evans and then Councilmember May.
Sure. Thank you for the comments of all my colleagues. I had a question for Ms. Resnick. For that website, that 30,000, will it need to be funded in out years as well, or will that do it, or will it be a small?
So our hope is that we can develop it in this next fiscal year, and that then we've got to figure out what those maintenance costs look like. Hopefully we could build it into, we are hiring a communications manager in the next few months, so hopefully that could fall under their work to kind of keep that up to date and provide that maintenance. So that was why we were asking for it as a one-time. I think the other piece we were thinking about in terms of that cost was the actual outreach, the printing of postcards and other things to get things out to community, because our family navigation work group has had a lot of conversations about there are multiple different places where families who need social services and other supports are going, but there is no information at many of those different touch points about early care and education. So if we can create a postcard that has, or a flyer that has that QR code to that website, it will start getting more families to know that we have all of these resources in our community and where to go. So could a family who's going to a Manna food pickup site have a postcard in their box that says, do you have a child 0 to 5? Go to this website to learn more information about how to support your child. So the idea is the website, but it is more than just the website. It is really trying to figure out how to reach our more vulnerable and underserved populations, let them know some of the supports that exist. I mean, when we did the training with our neighborhood ambassadors, when they heard about basics, they said, none of us have ever heard anything about this. When we talked about Imagination Library, they said, none of us have ever heard anything about this. And so as we keep hearing that more and more in the community, we keep thinking about what can we do to make sure that more families know some of these different services that exist in our community and get them tapped in. And we feel like this website and continuing that outreach will help us do that.
Sure. And so I thought I heard you say one time.
Yes.
Okay. And so you know what? My colleagues have been on the council a lot longer than I have, so I'm not claiming to know more than they do. I will say that since running for the school board, I have really been passionate about early care and education, and knowing that this is a tough budget cycle, I'm gonna tell you what it's hard to do. It's hard to sit here and nickel and dime early care and education and say what we can't do, what's hard to do, and I'll make sure I do a better job next time. And I don't like surprises. I always tell my colleagues that, but I really came here today prepared to support WPA assistance, the $500,000, the $30,000 for the web tool, and $125,000 for the state level EC advocacy. So when I heard you talk about that position earlier, you said that's going to be to help you raise funds. Is that correct?
No, so the state level advocacy position that we've put forward is really to help us with the purely state level advocacy. We've hired a separate director of development who is being funded through private philanthropic resources.
Okay.
But the state level advocacy position, I think it has become even more clear over the last 2 years that there are numerous state level changes that need to happen. And so working on continuing the work that MMF has done, but it is also tied to, as we look at larger systems transformations and looking at how do we support the early care and education workforce, it will take state level advocacy as well as local advocacy to find different pathways forward to figure out how to support the workforce and how to build that dedicated funding stream. Locally as well as potentially at the state level. So that state level advocacy position is really helping us with those pieces of work. Currently, Laura Jerome, who's our manager of strategic initiatives, spends about 20% of her time doing state level advocacy, and that's just not enough. So we are a member of the new state level coalition. That state level coalition is currently unfunded. And so being able to have a staff position on our team that could spend a portion of their time supporting the capacity of that state level coalition to get it off and get it running and get it moving would be really important for both our local common agenda, but also the work we're doing at the state level to help to transform the system.
So thank you for that. And I think what I heard when you all were before us the last time, and there are a few different people at the table, was my colleagues talked about wanting this work to move forward and it taking a bit longer than what people would have liked. And I know that some of this can't be done without staff. So I know moving things to the reconciliation list does not promise anything, but I'll just go back to what Dr. Bridgers talked about earlier when during Read Across America Week, you went and you read to some of our students, and I did the same. And help me remember, was it Jen? So Jen, so after the kids went outside, we sat on the floor and we talked, and I just was like, okay, so I almost don't feel like I was just here to read. So I just want to ask you all a couple of questions and help me to understand what some of the issues are, what are some of the barriers. So WPA came up, EquiCare came up, and I'm trying to get everything in my brain in enough time to be able to make decisions. So Jen was really great at explaining things, and I told her, well, I asked her, I said, if you had a wish list, something that you could do, what would be the thing that you would want somebody to know above the county council? And she talked about being able to advocate at the state level. I'm not saying that she wants this job. I'm just saying that she talked about wanting to be able to advocate for the state level. And I feel like the way that Jen was thinking is she wasn't thinking about trying to continue to tap out the county, the local government, but just find a way at the state level or through other means to get money to help with education and early education. And I think we even talked about, at one point we talked about gambling revenues being able to go towards education, and we didn't know where that money was and what happened in that area. And I think she had another thought about what to do, but and it was around American Heart Association, I think. She talked about
Sugar
wanting to,
beverage.
the sugar, so she was trying to, I thought she was being really thoughtful and creative and saying, like, this shouldn't be something that is just local. This should be something at a much higher level for us to think about, because this is really important. 0 to birth to 5, like we talk about wanting to have the playing field level for our students. I mean, this is one way to do it, 0 to 5, and then we wouldn't have as many questions or concerns about our kids entering into kindergarten. We would know that they were ready to learn, and so I just wanted your light's on. What did you want to say?
Well, so I was just going to say, I think there's 3 things that makes me think about. One, and I'll try to say these quickly, the return on investment. If you look at the Heckman research, what it shows is that for every dollar invested in early care, you get a $13 return back. And that means you have more kids entering kindergarten ready, you have more kids reading on 3rd grade ready, you have increased high school graduation, you have better health, you have reduced crime. There are a lot of long-term impacts that are connected to this early investment and how that is important. I think, secondly, what you talked to is that brain science, right? And what we know about the research. We know that 90% of a child's brain is developed by the time they're 5. So making these early investments is really, really important. And I think part of what we've seen with our system, and this is a national issue, we invest a lot more in our K-12 system than we do in our 0 to 5. And that is a national issue and a local issue and a state level issue that we are pushing against and trying to flip that mindset. And I think just lastly, we are out in community a lot, and I hear stories on the daily from families who are making really difficult decisions about whether they pay rent, whether they buy food, or whether they pay for childcare. And many of them are forced to make really difficult decisions. And so us investing in not only increasing programs like Working Parents Assistance, but figuring out some of these systemic level policies and shifts that need to happen both locally and at the state level are really important to help us move this system forward and achieve the common agenda goals that we set through that process.
Yep. And one of the things we talked about yesterday on a different topic, but came back to communication and how everybody accesses their information in different ways, and the things that we think people know, they don't. And just being more thoughtful about how we put information out there. So you all can view me as being reckless. My colleagues are up here being fiscally responsible because it's really tough, right? But I just want to say yes to everything, but I know I can't. But I don't know how people feel about putting what I just mentioned on the rec list.
Well, the thing is,
Yep, go ahead. Yeah.
So I think we have Councilmember Evans making a motion
Yeah,
to add both of those items.
Well, I wanted my council.
You want to hear from
my
others?
colleague,
Okay, so
yep,
we'll hold on
talk,
that.
Yep.
Let me go to Councilmember Macon, then I'll come
Yep.
back to Councilmember. Is that okay, Coach?
is this about the same topic?
Yeah, let me go to Councilmember Macon.
Thank you. There's a lot to talk about here, but I think that as we look at this, what I'm seeing as the number one priority is finding a way to get a lot more money into this space. Like, we are never going to be able to address this without, as you all have been saying, treating this as a public good and finding a way to fund it. So, we could move another 500,000, another million, and that is not going to be the solution here. We must have dedicated revenue, dedicated funds, and we don't have the whole council sitting here, but I think possibly everybody on the full council has said that at this point, that we need that to happen. And so we have to have that work continuing with real intentionality to get us the plan and the legislation that we need to get that done. And so for me, the 125K to ensure that we have someone who is really focused, really knowledgeable, and is going to move this work forward in a tangible way for us at the state level to get us to that place of being able to have dedicated revenue that's going to really allow us to get the funding that we need. For me, that's the number one priority. And actually there's a lot we could say about the whole portal website situation, but my biggest concern with adding really anything else is that it would end up on our reconciliation list looking like it's competing with that 125 that for that lobbyist position that I think that we need to get done because we can't see that work stall. And so.
And just to clarify, it's not a lobbyist.
Or sorry, not
because if
lobbying
it's county dollars,
work.
it cannot be lobbying.
Right,
It can be state level advocacy, education, and awareness.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, you're right. Advocacy, organizing, awareness. Thank you. I saw Andrew's figure. Yeah. Yes. Yes, you're right. I'm using lobbying too broadly, and I cannot do that here, so let me not do that. But yes, that kind of intentional organizing and advocacy that we need to move this work forward, it needs and deserves some funding. So I would be happy to either to make the motion or to second the motion to put that on the reconciliation list. And then I do think that we have to, the whole portal website conversation is an important one for us to come back to and figure out how we're going to solve this. I am looking at the portal now, and I will just say that I tried to click on things that I thought were buttons, but they're not buttons. And so I don't have access to, I can't get any access to any information through the portal unless it looks like I need to create a login. But I don't know what I'm going to see once I log in. So this is not a user-friendly landing page. And so it makes me wonder, actually, how many people are logging in? How many people are using this to learn more or get access to the childcare? Do we have numbers on this currently, on how many people are logging into the portal and how many people are using the childcare support services?
I will just say that they've received about 2,000 applications for WPA through the Community Connect portal. So that's a recall from our last session.
Okay. Okay. Anyway, I think this is to return to at another time because I would not be comfortable directing most families here because it took me a while to figure out how I would even try to get access to that information. And so we do absolutely have to find a way to not find a way. We must include information about things outside county services on something that's going to be a main hub that we're going to point people to. New York City just launched a decision tree type of website just recently for their child care, and it does include private child care offerings. So we, as the county government, we have to be able to be a one-stop shop for all of the information, and that's also what's going to get the traffic there and going to get the most people into our public resources as well. So we'll come back to that, but in the meantime, I do think that the 125K to ensure that work, that advocacy is moving forward intentionally is important, so I'm happy to move that.
Okay, we have a motion to add the 125,000 for the advocacy position. Is there a second? There's a second from Councilmember Evans. I agree with you that we need to come back to the portal at a later date and just talk about what it works. And I'm thinking Councilman Friesen and I had a conversation on another committee the other day about, I think it was DHCA's website. We don't want to fund a position for someone to help you navigate a government website. So I'd be curious to know how many of those two, and I know many people that receive WPA, for example, are getting assistance in figuring out how to apply. So all that aside, I agree that the advocacy is super important and has the potential to unlock a transformational set of changes, whether they be around credentialing, qualifications, pay, dedicated funding stream. That could be transformational, and there needs to be investment in that. And I realize you say the person that you have doing it now is 20% of their time. They got other things to do, and you could be doing a lot more. So I am realizing it's a tough budget. I do think that one is different in that it could leverage other funding and transformation down the line. So there's a motion and a second. I'll turn first to Council Co-Chair Sales, and then if other colleagues, and then we can try to land the plane here.
So is this just for the 125? Oh, okay. So you took the 30,000 off. Oh, okay. So I'm just, I know that you said that you have someone in your office that's attending a statewide meeting or is on the statewide childcare.
So we have one individual on our staff who does most of our state level work, and it's about 20% of her time.
Okay. And is this you said it was for a state commission that they're sitting on, or
No, it's not for a state
Oh,
commission.
okay,
It's
okay.
it's to work at the state level, determining and supporting what are the policies that are impacting the early care and education system, and then working with that state coalition to figure out what are the asks. It will be continuing the 3 MMF asks that have continued on, but we are starting to have conversations with that coalition around could they or is there interest of them investigating the educator compensation challenges along with those other state level issues.
And is this year round that they're working on this, or just during the 90-day?
It would be year round because they would also be charged with helping us build the coalition and working at the coalition at the state level, but also building a local coalition that could be tapping into that state level coalition when needed.
So now this 125 role is going to be building a statewide coalition.
The statewide coalition already exists. It would be participating in it. That statewide coalition exists, but it's unfunded. So right now they really don't have staff to manage it going into the next fiscal year. So this state level person would be able to help continue that work until we figure out other funding sources to support that state level coalition.
So this would be an annual amount for a
Yes, it
state
would be.
advocate.
Yes.
Now, how does COA and HHS in general work with the county when we set our state priorities for what we send our advocates, our paid advocates who basically live in Annapolis during the week, during the 90-day session? How do you communicate your state priorities to
So with the finance committee through with the finance committee through ECEI, there is also a part of that committee that does the legislative updates. So this last year, when the county was getting ready to send their legislative priorities to the state, they did turn to us and say, COA, what are your legislative priorities at the state? And we were able to share those and have them be part of that request that is put forward from the county. Jen or others, do you want to comment?
Because I don't recall that coming before us when we had our statewide committee discussion on what would be our state priorities. I can go back and look, but I don't believe it was the council's priorities that we work on with the county executive.
So within our department, we work with our intergovernmental relations liaison to elevate any recommendations to our state legislators. So,
I think Councilmember Sales was just saying we do a state ledge process where we say, here are our priorities. We work on a letter between the county executive and us, and I think she was pointing out that early childhood wasn't on the letter, and that might.
That was a missed opportunity is what I'm saying. Yeah. And we do it every year, so. Did
Ms.
you want to add
Rodriguez?
something?
Okay.
I do believe that early care and education priorities were included in the priorities from the council to the state legislative body.
Okay,
this
good.
year.
Oh, so it was included in the letter?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I think so.
And we still have over 1,000 people on the wait list. I don't know what the specific priorities are. I just know that, as we're looking at the budget, we just doubled the county executives, set aside to make room for more students. And the whole point of us supporting and having this early childhood education is to ensure that we are creating more seats. I think everyone's dedicated to creating more seats. And just because we are already doing advocacy at the state level, and you have 3 people who served on the legislative committee and sit in weekly sessions, and you have Councilmember Ludke, who's in those sessions listening to every single bill that impacts the state. I'm on the taxation committee. So, those are bills that wouldn't make it past without a favorable vote and having a statewide sort of impact. So I don't see, I'll wait to hear from my colleagues.
Okay. So we have a motion to add the $125,000 for the statewide advocacy to the reconciliation list, realizing it's a tough budget year. Do any more comments from colleagues? No. Okay. So all those in favor of adding that to the list, please raise your hand. Okay, that's unanimous. And so we'll see what happens. But I'm glad we had the discussion and we made the case, and you explained what it would work for. We've also kind of lifted up that we need to, outside of budget, have a portal discussion at some point. So we'll definitely do that. The other, since we're kind of doing everything together, you all have a 2.5 inflationary adjustment. That's all across the board. There's been some discussion. I have suggested, others have suggested increasing that amount, which could have a positive impact on you, and others, but we'll have to see how that all shakes out with the end of the budget process. But other than that, I think your NDA is pretty straightforward, Mr. Rodriguez-Hernandez. So is there anything else that we need to go over at this time? No. Okay. So with that, with appreciation for your work, we have a set of recommendations to send to full council, and we are adjourned. Thank you.